Welcome to our annual Charter Hill Society Leadership Roundtable. It's wonderful to see all of you on this toasty day. I'm Lachelle Blakemore, class of '89, and I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Development and Alumni Relations. And it is wonderful to welcome you back and to thank you, all of you, for your generous support and partnership of UC Berkeley. As we begin this event, I want to take a moment to recognize that Berkeley sits on the territory of the Huichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo Ohlone, the successors of the historic and sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Ohlone. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has benefited from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community and diversity, we have a responsibility and acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to its native people, to native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold UC Berkeley more accountable to the needs of American Indian and Indigenous people. To kick off today's program on supporting student success, please welcome Berkeley's 11th Chancellor, Carol Crist.
Good afternoon. I'm really thrilled to welcome you back to campus to explore an issue that we all care about. Thank you for your lasting commitment to Berkeley and enhancing its excellence. Each of us have grappled with isolation, with loss, and with other challenges during the pandemic. Yet during this time, your generosity was constant, especially in supporting students affected by the pandemic, as well as supporting our COVID-19 testing and our COVID research efforts. The spring 2022 semester was the first one since the pandemic began to return fully to in-person instruction. And I don't know how many of you were at the graduation, which is now 5 weeks ago, but I have never seen a group of more boisterous, ebullient students. It was as if they were all saying to each other and themselves, "We made it, we did it, we are so happy to be here." Welcoming students back to campus has been a complex and rewarding endeavor, and just one of the things we're going to discuss today in supporting student success. But before we begin that discussion, I want to update you on recent campus events. I'm going to first talk about rankings. I actually just heard about a new one today in university business, where we were named one of the top 100 universities that mattered worldwide. So that was kind of nice to read. Who doesn't like a good ranking? Forbes magazine named Berkeley the #1 US university. And what Forbes did, I think, was really interesting. They used the pandemic to redo their algorithm and change the emphasis in that ranking system to one that weighted heavily access and economic mobility. And those are, of course, places that Berkeley stands out. Our graduate schools and programs shone brightly in the U.S. News and World Report 2023 rankings. Programs in history, English, sociology, and psychology each ranked #1. Chemistry, physics, computer science, earth sciences, and statistics, #2. The College of Engineering and the Goldman School of Public Policy ranked #3, as did programs in biological sciences, clinical psychology, and math. That's really impressive. But rankings only tell part of the Berkeley story. Nonetheless, they help us attract talented new students. In February, a record 128,000 students applied for the fall freshman class. That was a 13% increase over last year, and last year was a 28% increase over the year before, so really astonishing. And I mean, the that's the good news. The bad news is we, in the 90s, we admitted 1 and 2 students. This year we admitted 1 and 7. And so that's really tough. There are so many really, really extraordinary students we would love to have here that we don't have room for. So that's the dark lining of this silver cloud. There was an increase among most racial and ethnic groups, first-generation students, and almost all gender identities. The diversity of our applicant pool is really strong. There was a crisis in late February, early March. You may have read about it, when the state Supreme Court ordered us to freeze enrollment at our 2020-2021 levels. And that was a year in which enrollment was really suppressed because of the pandemic, siding with a local group that had sued Berkeley for not considering the environmental impact of more students here. This devastating decision would have prevented us from offering admission to 5,000 students. Thankfully, in a record 7 hours, both halves of the legislature, the Assembly and the Senate, passed a bill. Governor Newsom signed it that restored the admission levels to the ones we anticipated, and we were able to admit those 5,000 students. I set an ambitious goal when I became chancellor to double student housing within a decade. Even with financial aid and scholarships, many students cannot afford housing and other costs of living. At the same time, we can only accommodate about 30% of our current undergraduates on campus. We by far house the lowest percentage of our undergraduates than any other undergraduate UC campus. So I'm pleased to announce 2 projects toward the end of working on housing. First, People's Park is closing this summer to begin work on a new open green space and housing for more than 1,100 undergraduates. The park is currently, as most of you know, a living and gathering place for people who are unhoused. The university is working with the city of Berkeley and several local organizations to provide transitional housing, on-site housing run by a nonprofit, and a community-led drop-in center. The drop-in center opened yesterday. I was told this morning there are only 3 unhoused people currently living in the park, down from a number of about 6 weeks ago of 60. We also broke ground on Anchor House, which is a dedicated home for over 700 transfer students across from the campus's western entrance. It's being designed and built by the Helen Diller Foundation. Comprising 21% of all undergraduates, transfer students often can't find local housing and struggle to connect to traditional student experiences. In addition to furnished apartments, this beautiful space is going to include a culinary classroom and a fitness center. Rent will be below market rate, and the property's net income will fund scholarships for low-income students. It's just an amazing, wonderful gift. Both projects answer to an urgent need and shatter traditional thinking about student housing and move us a long way toward building supportive communities for our students and for our neighbors. Housing is just one component that feeds into the student experience. Berkeley recently launched the Discovery Initiative to connect every undergraduate to an immersive experience that gives them a sense of purpose and potential. With new staffing and funding, this exciting effort redefines undergraduate education as a journey that begins the moment students arrive and ends with a unique project of their own design. Key aspects include a central hub that connects students to programs and collaborators, an advising project, and innovation grants for teams that are deeply invested in redesigning and scaling the discovery experience. We also celebrated the grand opening of the Baker Bio Ingenuity Hub, which is our bold new home for research and innovation. It's located in the former Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive on Bancroft Way. It's really amazing. I never imagined that an art museum could become a wet lab, but it's really beautiful. And the facility pairs Baker Labs, our flagship life sciences incubator, with fellowships and programming for students and researchers. The former galleries are now filled with world-class wet labs and collaborative areas where startup teams can test, develop, and grow their ideas. There are nearly 20 startups that have already moved in, and they range from those focused on gene and cell therapy to advancing crop production. Several sports teams also had reason to celebrate this spring. Just last weekend at the NCAA Track and Field Championships, hammer thrower Cameron Rogers smashed the collegiate record for the 5th time in her career. I would not like to get in the way of one of her hammers. And she gained her 3rd straight NCAA hammer title. And she moved to 9th on the all-time world list. That's really just incredible. Earlier this month, Cal men's rowing won the Intercollegiate Rowing Association Championship, beating Yale, capping an undefeated season with its 18th national championship overall. This was a trifecta this year. All 3 of our men's water sports won national championships: men's swimming, men's water polo, and men's rowing. The men's rowing championship is the 100th national title overall in Cal athletics. Undergirding all these accomplishments is Light the Way, our historic campaign to raise $6 billion. As of June 1st, more than 205,000 donors have given over $5.6 million, bringing us 94% of the way to our goal. Indeed, we haven't announced this yet, but I just heard this morning we're setting a record this year as of June 30th for most money that Berkeley has ever raised in a single year. So thank you. You're among the donors that are just stepping up in extraordinary ways. While the number of undergraduates increased by 7,500 between 2006 and 2019, the total number of full-time faculty has remained at about 1,500. So we have really grown the student body. We have not grown the faculty. And while graduate students are the vital bridge connecting research to teaching, we often can't match the financial packages that other universities provide. To address these gaps, the campaign has raised enough money to establish 27 new faculty positions and 48 new endowed graduate fellowships. As we approach the campaign's final leg, we'll remain laser focused on adding more faculty and graduate fellowships, in improving the undergraduate experience, and one of our greatest priorities, which is the Gateway. The Gateway is a new home for the transformative division of computing, data science, and society. This visionary facility will serve as both a physical gateway, greeting people on the campus's north side, and an intellectual gateway, connecting students and faculty across the campus. The Gateway will bring together ingenious minds to utilize the latest in data science and AI, artificial intelligence, for the sake of the public good, whether it be in human health, climate change, or social justice. There's so much more that I could tell you, but I'm excited to get to today's discussion on how Berkeley guides students in developing successful academic skills and strategies. I'm pleased to introduce and welcome to the stage our moderator, Oliver O'Reilly, Interim Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education, Jennifer Johnson-Hanks, who's Executive Dean of the College of Letters and Science, Marissa Nichols, who's Associate Athletics Director of Student Athlete Development and a Director of the Cameron Institute, Charmin Smith, Head Coach of Women's Basketball, and Denzil Streete, Assistant Vice Provost for Graduate Studies, Chief of Staff of the Graduate Division, and Director of the Office for Graduate Diversity. So welcome our speakers to the stage.
Thank you, Chancellor, and good afternoon, everybody. Before I begin, I just wanted to echo Chancellor Crist's gratitude for all that you do to support the Berkeley campus and our students. It affects everybody on this campus in multiple positive ways, and we are very, very grateful. So thank you so much. This afternoon, I'm joined on stage by some of my favorite people on the Berkeley campus. Denzil Streete, Charmin Smith, Marissa Nichols, and Jenna Johnson-Hanks. So welcome. I'll be asking them some questions on supporting student success. Some of the questions will be directed towards a specific panelist, and others will be directed towards the group itself. So whoever wishes to weigh in first, please do so. And at the end of the discussion, I will be given the signal that we need to stop asking questions of the panelists, and it will be time for questions. So let me begin with a question for all the panelists. What does student success look like to you? Jenna, would you like to?
Sure, I'll jump in. Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, all of you, for being here and for your generosity to the university. So when we think about student success in the College of Letters and Science, we're really trying to think about our mission as preparing students for lives of consequence, by which we mean lives where they make contributions beyond themselves. The kinds of work that you have done, many of you in your lives, that is what we're trying to build. We're trying to develop an educational framework that will support our students in doing, to give back to the world something meaningful. And so we're trying to think through what skills and knowledge and dispositions do they need, in order to be able to do that. And I think that helps us then think about success as having both a general and a specific. So if we think of the general as being, we support students in developing lives of consequence, the specific is that they're going to do that in every different domain. We're going to have artists and entrepreneurs and scientists and politicians and hopefully a few faculty and people who make their contributions in different ways. And so trying to build an educational framework that is capacious enough and flexible enough that whether a student wants to study East Asian languages or they want to study data science, that there's an intellectual home for them.
Thank you. Marissa?
Sure. Good afternoon. So I have the privilege of leading the Cameron Institute for Student Athlete Development. Mr. Cameron is in the back there. And one day I actually asked him what success looks like for him. And he shared that being able to go up to any student athlete, we have 940 currently, and asking them about their interests and what their plans are post-college and what that looks like for them. And the student athlete being able to have a very clear answer of their interests and their passion and their skill set and what that looks like after Cal is a part of success for the Cameron Institute. So I'll share more broadly. We look at it through three specific domains: community engagement, career development, and mental performance and leadership development. Our highest goals when the student athlete leaves UC Berkeley is that they have landed what we call a golden opportunity. So not just any opportunity, but an opportunity that aligns with their interests and skills and that they deem as exceeding their expectations. We also work towards them developing different world of work experiences, job shadows, internships, opportunities, so that they can learn what is of interest to them and how that looks after UC Berkeley. The next domain of community engagement success for us is through three progressions. One is that first initial experience and immersion. The second is more of a reflective opportunity where they see something in the community that's of interest. They go out, they have the skills to give back, they reflect on what that means for them and others. And then the last tier being they actually want to go out and lead their own project. And a lot of our student athletes are incredible and do that with or without us. And then the third domain of mental performance and leadership development success for us essentially looks like the student athlete has improved their athletic performance while at Cal and competing at Cal, and also improve their overall sport well-being and experience. And so we can look at a variety of metrics there in terms of athletic performance, performance metrics, confidence, resilience, ability to have even difficult conversations with others. All of these things factor into the overall well-being and also performance on the field. And we spent a lot of time actually quantifying this. Coach Charmin can say she gets bugged by me a lot for the students to submit their surveys, but that's how we collect the data at the end of the year and put it together in a comprehensive report to try to demonstrate what success looks like, as we know is so critical anytime you have a donor endowed program. So that's a little bit for us.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Charmin?
Yes, thank you. I'm really excited to be here and to have this opportunity to speak with you all. And to answer the question, our mission for our program is essentially to help our student athletes develop into the best version of their authentic self. And, you know, I think that encompasses a lot, but I think it's really important a lot of times in that age from 18 to 22 years old, you're just trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to figure out what you want to do. And I found that people are the most successful when they know who they are and they feel good about who they are. So we try to provide an environment within our team in which everyone can feel comfortable being themselves and their authentic self. And that helps them perform better in the classroom. It helps them perform better on the basketball court and in their communities if they just feel good about who they are.
Thank you, Charmin.
And for us in the graduate division, we like to see our graduate students as the fulcrum of the institution, often left out in conversations because 30,000 undergraduates, everyone comes second place to that. So our graduate students are some of the best and the brightest in the world, choosing to come to Berkeley, work with our talented, really fantastic faculty, and then to go on to change the world. So while they're here, we want them to have a lasting impact on our undergraduates, the Berkeley, Oakland, Richmond community, and then to go on to change the world, whether through academic careers or industry careers, wherever their research and intellectual pursuits may take them.
Thank you, Denzil. My next question is for Jenna. Chancellor Crist mentioned the Discovery Initiative in her opening remarks. Could you talk about how it's setting a new standard for learning and redefining undergraduate education at Berkeley?
Yeah, that's great. So the term discovery is one of maybe the two most Berkeley terms we could think of. That, you know, what does it mean to be a Berkeley thinker, a Berkeley contributor? It's fundamentally about discovery. In the College of Letters and Science, we think about discovery as being all of that work right at the limit of what is known and unknown. And so much of our mission is about new discoveries, about pushing back the horizons of the unknown to create, to make what is known bigger, to make more space. And the Discovery Initiative is a way of including our students very systematically and very intentionally in that core Berkeley project of knowledge creation. It means from day one that we are trying to find ways to incorporate our students in the research experience already as first semester freshmen. And that is a mix of new work and what's the right way to say this? And providing structure around programs and activities that we've done for a long time. So, for example, the freshman and sophomore seminar program is something that we've done, is now in its 50th year, something that has for a long time been an important way of integrating freshmen and sophomores into the intellectual life, the research life of the university. And that then becomes part of thinking through how do we ensure that our students are really included in this. And similarly, the undergraduate research apprenticeship program and the summer undergraduate research fellowships, these are ways that we have for a long time provided students with funding, most of it coming from people like you, to ensure that the students can participate in a direct way. And that then is combined with some really wonderful new ideas. The Chancellor spoke briefly about some of the innovation that our faculty are engaged with in rethinking introductory courses, rethinking reading and composition, rethinking the introductory math sequence, to ensure that students come into those seeing them not as a dreary obligation, but as a way of entering the life of the mind in a fulsome way. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
My next question is for Marissa. How is the Cameron Institute preparing student athletes for life after college?
That's a big one. The Cameron Institute, just for context too, has been up and running for 2 years. We just finished our second academic year. So we launched in the middle of the pandemic, and we have had a lot of individual great successes. And we also recognize there's a real opportunity to create a model that's unique that the student athlete can journey through based on their interests and goals. And we're reaching every single student athlete. So we have a little bit of ways to go there. And one of the things we're working on doing going into year 3 is having an even more concrete model that the students really understand and can work through to navigate. So it starts the moment they get on campus. You heard that theme a little bit today already. And so when they get to campus, our goals are to ensure that they're registered in the Golden Bear Network, which is our home for alumni and professionals to give back in terms of mentorship and job and career opportunities, that they've taken their career interests assessment and they've come up with their 3 job titles that align with their major interests, that they're registered on the Calm app. If you use Headspace or Calm for meditation, that they're set up there, that we have demystified mental health and sports psychology services. So we work to try to set a foundation through our new student athlete orientation and also through the UGBA 199 class that the Athletic Study Center has led and that we've had the chance to partner with. And then you think about those 3 pillars and a progression for each. And so we've identified the career tasks years 1 through 4 that are most essential to help our student athletes land that golden opportunity, and trying to keep it really simple. And these are the 2 things you do your first year. Your second year, you have more tools. You're looking at your resume and the interests, your LinkedIn profile set, your first informational interview. Your junior year, you're engaging in that job shadow, that world of work experience. Your senior year, you're reaching out to your professionals again, you're applying to different roles. So our plan is to have that progression laid out even clearer for student athletes. And the ways that we do that are through a few modalities. So we offer one-to-one support where the student can come in and see us in California Memorial Stadium or Hospavilion and work with us one-on-one. We offer it through mentorship opportunities with some of our amazing professional and alumni in a matching program. We offer it through classes for credit, which is a really important part of the model. It really aligns well with student athletes' time demands, so they can take the career readiness seminar and develop a lot of these tools. We do it through networking and experiential opportunities, multi-session events, and we also offer it asynchronously online. So that Golden Bear Network platform I shared is something that's available and accessible at any time. And so I really just focus on the career track right now. Each pillar has its own progression and track, and we really see the Institute as being something that sets you up for great success while you're at Cal, to capitalize on this amazing experience at UC Berkeley, and then position you for wonderful success after.
Thank you, Marissa. Charmin, could you tell us about a specific athlete or moment that has inspired you and affirmed your efforts as a coach and mentor to help guide our female student athletes?
Sure. And I think I was speaking earlier with, is it Bruce? I don't see it. Yes. Chatting earlier with you, and you mentioned my history being at the other school for a while. And my undergraduate work there, my grad school work there, and then coaching there, and making the change to come here and coach at Cal. A lot of that had to do with my answer to this question, in that I did want to be a mentor. I did want to be more involved in the lives of my student athletes and not just a coach. I love my alma mater, and that's home. And there's something unique and different about Cal that I really appreciate. To share that moment at the time of George Floyd's murder, things were really, really tough for me personally and for a lot of the young women on our team. And I think we were all struggling with how to just get through and manage each day. And there was one day where I came to practice, and we were meeting in the locker room to have a conversation prior to, and I just said, look, guys, I don't have it today. Like, I'm not here. And we started talking about George Floyd's murder and what was going on. And I just asked people how they felt. And there were a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. And then one thing I did learn from Tara, coach at my alma mater, was it's not okay just to complain and to be upset about something and to not do anything about it. And so I asked the group at that time, you know, after we wiped away the tears, I said, well, what do you guys want to do? I'm not pushing you to do anything, but if you want to do something and you feel compelled to do something, I am here to support you. And let me know what feels right. And the next day, I believe there was an 8-page Google document written up by Sierra Ritchie and Kylan Crocker, 2 members from our team, one Black female, another one a white female. And they had demands, I use that word lightly, but requests, asks of the athletic department, of the university, and essentially this sparked the formation of our Racial Justice Council, which we have right now, and Cameron Institute supports. And I'm so proud of them because I think this is something that will live on, I hope, for as long as this institution is here. And it's a group of student athletes along with staff support that's committed to having a safe space for conversations, for education. We had a session on power and privilege. We had Colleen Haas come in and talk about her experience with the Black Panther Party. Just a lot of great things, and I know there's more to come. And this is because they chose to do something and not to just complain or be sad. And they're extremely powerful, and I'm just proud of any way that I can like help urge that along for our student athletes.
Thank you, Charmin. Denzil, you mentioned earlier that graduate students are the fulcrum of Berkeley's public mission. They drive research while mentoring undergrads in their education and career goals, and they also, I feel, provide tremendous inspiration for our undergraduates as well. Can you talk about the need to expand fellowship funding as a tool for recruiting these brilliant undergraduate students and helping them thrive while they're here?
Thanks, Alpha. That's a really good question. The Chancellor spoke earlier about the performance of our graduate programs nationally, internationally. And a big part of doctoral funding is that guaranteed funding that students get when they choose to attend the Berkeley PhD program. And when you compare our funding to our Ivy peers, and in a group, specifically the Ivy Plus group, which includes the Ivy institutions, ourselves, Stanford, Chicago, we're the only public institution, as you could imagine. Students are still choosing, the good news is students are still choosing to come to Berkeley, largely because of the prominence of our faculty, the quality of research, and just the opportunity to live in the area. But it's becoming more and more difficult to provide the resources for those students to do so just on the cost of living, right? So compared to our Ivy peers, we're falling way behind. So fellowships give us that opportunity for those students who we just needed an extra push to get them here for equity purposes for our students from underrepresented backgrounds. Our fellowships, well-funded fellowships, help us provide those students with the resources they need to really thrive in their graduate program so they can focus on mentoring our undergraduates, working in the lab, doing research, and getting that quality of experience, and knowing that their basic needs are being met by a competitive stipend that facilitates them thriving in the Bay Area. So that's the difference a good fellowship makes in having our students really be able to do their best work and focus on the sort of academic passions they came to pursue, and have the financial issues resolved by the university.
Thank you. And I know just from my own research group that some of the best research work in 30 years at Berkeley has been funded by the Chancellor's Fellowship and the Berkeley Fellowships. It's really remarkable the freedom those fellowships give to our graduate students to do work and to think, to explore and discover. It's really fantastic. My next question is for all of you, and whichever one would like to speak first, please do so. Well, we all remember last August when students came back to campus And I've never seen energy like it. I've never seen so much energy and so much anxiety at the same time. But I felt like the students' energy carried all of our anxiety away, it carried us through our periods of anxiety and their own anxiety as well. And we launched the fall semester like none other. Could you talk about some of the challenges you faced and the opportunities for positive change that we experienced in welcoming students back to campus last year? You had a very difficult... Jenna, I think, as Executive Dean, that was...
Yeah, I think so much. Exactly as you said it, the enthralling energy of people back, like students really excited and happy to go to class. It was glorious.
Yes.
Glorious. And also just struggling to figure out how to do that again. That the Zoom had enormous challenges. It had certain advantages for some groups of students, and trying to re-find our footing, I think for all of us was just a real challenge. I'm struggling to find a specific example. Does someone have a specific example of that?
My story is a little bit more unique just in that we were here. As student athletes, we were here on campus in a very odd way. Not able to use our locker room, but still practicing with masks on. The most challenging things were I had 6 freshmen during that 2020, 2021 year. Mm-hmm. And arriving on campus as a freshman and having to be here and being told you can be in your dorm room and that's it. Pretty much you're not going out to eat, you're not doing it, you're not hanging out and going to football games and all the things that you think of when you think about your freshman experience. It was very traumatic, and having people being contact traced and moved to the dorm in Foothill and isolated for 14 days. And your parents can't come visit you. No one else is allowed in your room but you. And you were supposed to function. So, we had a student athlete who unfortunately tore her ACL a few weeks into our season. And she's from Sweden. And she was having surgery. And they told us we're not allowed in her dorm room after the surgery. So I don't know if any of you have had ACL surgery, but going to the restroom, like getting up to take your medicine, all of these things where you need someone there, they couldn't have anyone help them and couldn't have family members come and visit. So what we did was we had to say, okay, we're putting you in a hotel because your mom's gonna come and take care of you regardless, right? Those were the UC Berkeley housing rules that we had to abide by. So going through that whole year of trying to have a season and trying to play basketball with masks on and all of this, to the next year where I'm like, oh my God, that's what your teeth look like. Seriously, I didn't know what my plans, I didn't know what they looked like, seriously. I'm like, oh, you have dimples. This is amazing. And so that connection piece that we were missing, which is, the number one part of our core values, it's connection. So being in the locker room, them blasting the music, hanging out together, and those types of things that you do when you're a part of a team, to hear and see that happening again, that's incredible, because it was a struggle trying to do things in a very odd and weird state.
On the flip side, I would say in the graduate division, we had the most graduate students ever in the history of Berkeley, over 13,000 graduate students, and the most diverse cohort ever enter Berkeley. So the pandemic provided good challenges for us in thinking about how do we serve all these students in new ways? How do we have the diversity of the cohorts reflect our new mission, our services we provide? And so we're still growing through those stretches in terms of we providing a new space on campus for our diverse students, the Inclusive Excellence Hub, and then providing more services for graduate students in master's and doctoral programs, from career services to professional development to a new student center we're about to launch, just as we sort of think of new ways to support graduate students and provide them with the resources they need as they work with our undergraduate students. So the pandemic, in a weird way, gave us more opportunity that we can reflect on what's our mission in graduate education and the ways in which graduate students can take a more substantial role on campus in serving our students and faculty.
I'll just add two themes that we noticed is one, this hunger and desire to get involved in as much as possible, which is an amazing thing, and also trying to help our student athletes be grounded in their main goals of graduating from the #1 public institution and performing in their sport. And then how can we also add value to their experience and their development and making sure they're not biting off more than they can chew. And I think that that was something that we saw right away is now that everything had opened up in some ways, they wanted to be involved in more and do more and helping them get really focused on what's most essential for them. That's an ongoing challenge, I'd say. And then the second is it actually helped us in ways where the accessibility improved in that we had a lot of our student athletes who could now attend a nighttime session on Zoom because they didn't have to come back to campus after a long day of practice and studying. They could log in and be a part of an opportunity that we were offering. And actually a lot of our student athletes in the data that we collect suggests that they still would like to do some of their one-on-ones on Zoom. And I think that that does help with some of the geographical proximity parts of UC Berkeley where we can be spread out in certain areas. They can log in, they can have a great and meaningful session with one of us on the team, one of our team members, and go right on to their next commitment. So that's something that's helped us out too.
Thank you. And thank you very much for all your wonderful answers. And now I'm going to open it up to the floor for any questions you might have. And Carolyn has a mic here for you. And while she's passing the mic on, I just wanted to thank Carolyn for all her help putting this panel together and for helping us prepare for today. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Yeah, I have a question. Student athletes can now earn income through their, name, image, endorsement. I was wondering if the university has formulated any policies or guidelines to address this new reality, and if so, what they are.
Charmin and I are looking at each other. Which one? I'm happy to. Yeah.
You want me to start?
Maybe if that's okay.
So how many of you know about name, image, and likeness? Okay. All right. So basically, student athletes can now get paid, right, in a way that they weren't able to prior to this. And it's been in the making for a long time. And the issue is that the Ncaa has not provided many guardrails or rules or anything surrounding name, image, and likeness because they're tired of being sued. And I'm generalizing. I don't. But the problem, the work should have been done earlier to avoid these lawsuits so that the Ncaa wouldn't be in the position that it's in right now, where it's like, oh, okay, student athletes get whatever you want, right? There have been some major flaws within the Ncaa for quite some time that are kind of rearing its head at this point. Name, image, and likeness, from my perspective, I support it. I think there are a ton of students at Cal who can make money off of things that they do that aren't student athletes. So why would we prevent student athletes from doing so? And those students may be on financial aid or have academic aid and such, so it's no different than a student athlete who's on scholarship also earning money. So I am in full support of it. But we do need some guardrails here so that we don't have a booster saying, hey, if you come to Cal, I got $500,000 waiting for you just to like hold up my car dealership sign on a Tuesday and yell "Go Bears," and that's it, right? That's not appropriate, but I believe things like that are happening at some institutions. It's challenging though to step in and try to provide those rules because we have no support from the Ncaa at this moment.
Yeah. We've taken more of an educational approach and less of like a brokering deal approach. And I think just maybe speaking on behalf of the department, though I wouldn't consider myself the expert at all, we're trying to figure out how to stay competitive in the landscape that we exist. So coaches like Coach Charmin can still recruit and have the opportunity to recruit against other schools, but stay grounded in who we are at UC Berkeley and the integrity of what we're about and not conforming to what's happening around us. So it's, I think, really ongoing and trying to figure out how to best do that.
Thank you for the question.
Hello.
Hello.
Just to say who I am and why I'm asking this question, I had an athletic career that began in a class in Berkeley that went for more than 40 years. And even though it wasn't the center of my life, it was important. And I became a 2-time national champion and a world champion in this sport. But my question is, which is a difficult one, is how do you deal with the almost certainty of life-changing injuries of anyone who becomes serious about any athletic endeavor, which I have experienced, and I've also known many athletes in other sports who have had similar experiences. And of course, when one is young, as they say, one feels invulnerable, and one definitely has this passion to become excellent in your sport, as I did. But the consequences of that often are not sufficiently known by the athletes or even by their teachers, their coaches. And I'm wondering how you address this, or if you have contemplated this question, which I think is actually quite serious.
So I can start there. There's a reason why I have only been at, elite academic institutions as a coach. And when I was picking a school, it wasn't about basketball. It was about using basketball to get the best education possible. Because basketball, from what I was taught by my parents, is only going to take you so far. Now, they had no idea it was going to take me this far. When we walk into the living room of, a 15 or 16-year-old, the message is, you want the best of both worlds. You want this elite academic degree that can change your life, that can open doors for you, and then you choose which door you want to walk through. Because there's no guarantee with this basketball. There are a handful of people, the Sue Birds, the Candace Parkers of the world, that will never do anything but basketball, right? But for most of us, we're going to have to, pay for our life in a different way. It's not going to be paid because of our sport. And we have to find that athlete that cares enough about the academics. And go ahead.
And we will have injuries. People, even who don't make it big, or whether they do or not, they will have injuries, and serious ones.
Yes, and he said they will have injuries. And just to share a quick story, and then I'll pass it along. The Final Four team of 2013 had a player on that team by the name of Tierra Rogers. She was the #1 recruit in that class of 7. That was the #1 recruiting class in the country. Tierra's freshman year, the freshman year of that group, Tierra was in a workout in early September, passed out during a workout, never played basketball again. And I remember visiting her in the hospital. She was from the San Francisco area. And what she said to me was, "Thank God I didn't go to Baylor." Right? Because she would have been in Waco. This was before Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? Those of you that know. So she would have been at Baylor, right? Which good academic school, but she didn't choose just based on the basketball. And at that point, Baylor had Brittany Griner, who we should all know right now, and they were, winning national championships and such. But she chose this because of the holistic experience that she was going to get. And I think that's really important because you never know. Just like that athletic career can be over. And so, we fully support our athletes. Tierra was on scholarship for her whole 4 years, right? And so if something tragic like that does happen in women's basketball, I can speak for, we're going to support that student athlete to get their degree.
It doesn't affect just your athletic career, it affects your life, too.
Yes, because so many athletes are tied up, like being an athlete is their identity, which is why I think it's really important to have that relationship with the Cameron Institute and to, be the best version of your authentic self outside of what you do with a basketball, football, baseball, or whatever it is.
Marissa.
I would just say that's why, thank you, Charmin, the Institute, I think, is so integral to the UC Berkeley experience and unique in that every school is asked to do something like this, but not every school, in fact, very, very, very few have something as robust and systematic as the Cameron Institute. Thanks so much to Brian for making that a reality and our generous donors in the room. And one of the things in the Institute we have is a sports psychologist who helps our student athletes process some of these different challenges with injuries. And I think helping our student athletes, as Coach said, see what life could look like. And that's a big part of what the Institute does, like outside of Cal. That's a big reason why I got into this business. I was a top athlete myself and had multiple injuries and was so rooted in who I was as an athlete. And it wasn't until I learned about everything that's possible and how to really maximize this incredible experience that I was able to learn what's possible and what led me here. So I hope that helps a little bit.
May I ask what sport?
Judo.
Nice. Very good. Congratulations.
Wow.
And the transferable skills piece, and then I'll stop, but the transferable skills is a part of the Institute learning too, of how can they transfer these amazing qualities they learn in athletics to life. And I think that hits on what you're sharing too of beyond sport.
Hi, thank you so much for supporting the students' success. I thought what you're doing for the athletes in terms of helping them to ensure success afterwards is really great. What is Cal currently doing for the other students, and how can they find such programs or help? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really wonderful question. We are on the one hand doing absolutely everything we can, and on the other hand, I think you said you have 900 students. We have 32,000, and so there are. We can build systems and structures that are intended to provide support for all, but we don't have the resources to provide this kind of individualized nest making for all of our students that we are able to provide for our student athletes. And it is very much something that I'm trying to think through what pieces of this we can do realistically at scale, how we can build nests of a kind for every one of our students, but the resource constraints are pretty substantial. Should I talk about some of the ideas that I have that we?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
I'm going to
please.
keep talking. Sorry. So one thing I'm extremely excited about that we are trying to build, starting for very first semester students, is to ensure that students can come in as part of an intellectual cohort. So we're not able to, we'll be piloting this with 5 cohorts in the fall of 2023. And the idea is that they will have 3 of their courses that fulfill 3 different breadth requirements that are linked together thematically. And that group of students, 25 of them, will be enrolled in these courses together. And that one of them will be a core course that will be taught by a senior faculty member. We're trying to get all 5 of them to have that core faculty member be someone who's won the Distinguished Teaching Award. And they will have resources to provide students with an augmented set of course-related, of close core co-curricular activities. So for example, one of these themes we're calling Into the Field. The core course is an integrative biology course that takes advantage of our field station at Point Reyes. And students will camp there 7 weekends across the semester and learn to do field biology. And then the other 2 courses, the wing courses, one of them is in historical archaeology and one is in urban geography. And so this allows students to think about fieldwork as something that can extend across all different domains of knowledge production and see some connection between their courses. Again, our challenge is scale. So this way of thinking about an integrated introduction to scholarship, there's lots of research that suggests that is enormously transformative, particularly for students who who are first in their family to go to college, particularly for students who come from history of disadvantage, that having that cohort experience grounded in a thematic structure is just very productive. In the College of Letters and Science, we have 5,000 incoming freshmen in the fall, and at campus-wide, there's nearly 7. And just the trying to think through how do we build cohort-based experiences at scale is something I'm really thinking about. So if anyone is interested in helping think, how does one do what we know are high-impact practices, like they're able to do in the Cameron Institute at scale? That's something I'm thinking hard, and I'm very eager for thought partners on that.
Let me thank Chancellor Crist and each of the 5 panelists for your contributions towards student success. Really appreciate it. It's obvious you all care about students, which is great to see. My comment or question is any university should probably have a pretty good idea of what their strengths are and what areas of improvement or weaknesses are that are resulting in certain outcomes, either great success or maybe not achieving at the level. So not everybody has to answer this, but if anybody has some thoughts on what Cal's real great strengths are and try to reinforce those, and conversely, where are the weaknesses or areas of improvement that are perhaps impeding student success in some cases. Thanks.
I'll jump in. So I think actually our greatest strength is also a challenge, and our greatest strength is that any thought you can think, any interest you can have, you're likely to find a world expert on it here. That you think about this horizon, the endless possibility of chasing any idea. You can do that here in a way that is just truly extraordinary. When the Chancellor talked about that diversity of departments that are ranked first, second, third in the country, that is unprecedented. It is really extraordinary to have not just one scholarly strength, but scholarly strength across the humanities, the social sciences, the biological sciences, math and physical sciences, the professional schools. To have that scale of scholarly excellence is really extraordinary. But it's a little bit like living in the Amazon rainforest, that every new species, like there's species we've never heard of, but they're behind a log, or they're under, they're around a bend, or around under a leaf. They're inside of a calla lily, and there's no map, and there's no path, and there's no structure, right? So that it is both our extraordinary strength that everything is possible. And it's a real challenge, particularly for our incoming students who they don't yet know how to find their way. So I think that we have both that extraordinary privilege, but also a real challenge. One other challenge is the finances, as Denzil was talking about. Our peers are extremely well funded, and we're doing the best we can.
I think a strength, the people. I mean, just surrounded by amazing people everywhere you turn, and that goes a long way. I know in athletics we get recruits because we bring them in to, talk to Dr. Ty Douglas, or have a good conversation with Jim Knowlton, or go meet with Kelly McElhaney in the business school, and they're just blown away by the people that they meet. And so I think that's a huge strength. Areas of improvement, I think when you talked about under the leaf and here and hidden behind this rock and this, I think sometimes like the Cal way, it's like you're going to grind your way through and it's going to make you tougher, and then you're better than the other school because you had to grind your way. And it's like, nah, let's just like be more efficient and help people get through. That's not coddling. That's not, pampering. It's just efficiency. And sometimes we don't operate as efficiently, I think, as we could and as other institutions do. And then from an athletics perspective, which I think is what you're speaking to as well with the finances, like to be a Power 5 institution, a Pac-12 school without a practice facility, with a women's basketball locker room that I can't bring recruits into the locker room. I don't, because I would lose them. And so, no practice facility, those things make it really, really hard. I don't know how Mark does it, It's a struggle to compete against all of the institutions that we're supposed to be competing against when they have more and they can show these 15 and 16-year-olds the bling bling. And then that's when we have to go back to the people. And then the bells and whistles, no, don't look at that. Just like, talk to me, stay here, stay with me. Stay with me, right? I know there's no gym, but hey, stay with me. And this is what we're doing. And it's challenging, but as I told, there's nowhere I'd rather be because of the people. It's special.
And at the graduate level, it's the same thing, right? My colleagues get mad at me because I get to recruit the best, most diverse students because of the existing diversity, the prominence of our faculty. But then when you look at the funding, it's like students are trying to grind their way through to figure out how to make it here in California. But somehow we do it, right? An Ivy League graduate myself, working under the Ivy, I just can't figure out this Cal magic that somehow students arrive here, they work with faculty, they mix up that soup, and then they leave here at the top of their field. But it shouldn't, as Coach said, it shouldn't be that hard. And to the extent that we could provide more resources so students could really focus on their academic pursuits, I think, just think of where we would be with those resources if, with all the trials and tribulations, we are still leading the country. I think with more resources, we will definitely be leaving the others in our dust.
Well said.
I just want to thank the panelists and the Chancellor for your invaluable leadership on this campus. I'm truly grateful for your exceptional commitment to our students. As a former undergraduate and graduate student and now faculty member, I really tremendously appreciate the bird's eye view I'm getting on the great things that I think we're committed to doing. Denzil, I'm wondering if you specifically could speak to the great work that you're doing in OGD. I've heard a lot about the pathway to the Professoriate program as a graduate student. I wish that existed when I was here. And I know when you first talked about it in our first meetings, I actually thought about going to graduate school again just to be a part of that program. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that graduate student cohort that you spent so much time cultivating, and I think it's been quite meaningful for our students.
Nice, thanks, Lisa. So as I said, I don't have the statistics to back this up, but I think we recruit the most diverse graduate students of any university in the country, and we provide the most diverse faculty for universities around the world, right? So for many of those students, getting a doctoral degree is not because my dad was a faculty member, I know what I'm doing, right? So the Path to the Professoriate program is a program where we demystify what a PhD is, not assuming anyone entering our doctoral programs would know what it means to get a PhD. And those students, it's a sort of cohort-based model where all entering students from historically underrepresented backgrounds, we give them a stipend so that they're not thinking whether, should I participate in this program or spend Fridays in the lab, right? They come to a virtual session online, another beauty of the pandemic, we do it via Zoom, and they just get through storytelling to hear from our wonderful faculty and senior graduate students about how have they navigated their PhD, what does it mean to get a PhD, what are the resources on campus you should be aware of. As you can imagine, there are tons of resources on the Berkeley campus that a student coming in may not necessarily know that it's available to them. Our over 20 libraries, how do you make use of those? Mental health, having difficult conversations with your mentor, thinking about what is the trajectory from me in my first year as a doctoral student right through becoming a faculty member, right? So that by the end of the first year, they would have talked to senior graduate students, tenured faculty members at Berkeley, and they would have pretty much charted a course from year 1 straight through to year 5 or 6. And so that it's not left up to chance of who the advisor is or the people they may come across as to where they end up on the back end of their degree, but they're intentionally thinking about putting those structures in place from day one, from semester one, so that the likelihood of success is greater and they can make use of all the great resources we have on campus. So that program, I don't think exists in any of our peer institutions. And sort of step 2 of the program opens this fall. We're going to have a building on campus we're calling the Inclusive Excellence Hub, where those students will no longer say, despite being part of the most diverse cohort of graduate students ever on campus, we're still hearing, oh, I'm the only Black student in my cohort in chemistry, right? But there are 300 of the doctoral students from African American backgrounds. Or I'm the only first generation student in this tiny program in demography, right? So in the Inclusive Excellence Hub, we will have the opportunity to bring all of those students together. So they don't no longer have to look around to see who's like them. They just show up on the Inclusive Excellence Hub and they'll be surrounded by folks who look like them. But more importantly, the part I'm more excited for is our undergraduates are also going to be in that space. So for the first generation transfer student who's interested in research, when they think about who gets a PhD, it's no longer where they're the exception. They're going to be in a building where everyone who's getting a PhD looks like them. So that space opens in the fall, phase 1, and we are thinking through the following phases to really have that pipeline of undergraduates being mentored by graduate students, and the graduate students are mentored by our postdocs and fantastic faculty members of color, all in the same space, no longer having to know where on campus to go, but have in mind one space where you can go and you'll have all the resources available to you. So that's the vision we're building, and I think support from individuals like yourself make those things possible, and we can keep ahead of our Ivy peers in unique ways. Thank you for the question.
Yes, I'm wondering if you could share with us. First of all, I'd like to say Berkeley is so incredibly lucky that Carol Crist agreed to be Chancellor. I think that has been phenomenal. And then I'm wondering, what has been the effect of the graduate students unionizing?
Good question. Graduate students unionization. From in a uniquely Berkeley way, we think it's the right thing, right? Students demanding the wages for the requisite work that they're doing. And I think for the most part, we've had a really great relationship with our unions. Our faculty have been really supportive of the unions and working with them. And in many ways, we've sort of been leading the country in terms of how do you establish that working relationship between faculty, administration, and graduate students. There are, from time to time, little turbulence, but I think generally the relationship has worked really well as we get folks who, in, again, the Berkeley way, are really committed to what they're doing and finding pathways to really work through that success, because healthy graduate students, well-paid graduate students are successful graduate students, and they're more committed in working with our faculty. So I think that relationship is as it should be, but I think in unique ways we are finding strategies to make it work to the benefit of the campus.
And we now have time for one last question.
I think there's a question over.
A fire with respect to the building that was housing the DE-IBJ initiative. I don't know if anybody wanted to comment. Is that not impacting things, or is that a problem?
I'm sorry. I don't think we heard your full question.
Oh, I read something in Berkeley side about there was a fire near I think like Jennings and Telegraph, one of the buildings that houses.
Yes, the fire at the Anna Head School. Yes.
So I could take that one. So the fire you're referring to is in one of our buildings, and a head building that housed our a program that focused on ISSI, one of our programs that predominantly supported graduate students of color. And the plan is that the space I just spoke about, the Inclusive Excellence Hub, is going to house those graduate students who use that space to conduct research, do their writing, etc. So that's our short-term plan in accommodating those students in terms of helping them get through their degree, to be productive in their writing. They're going to take up some space at the Inclusive Excellence Hub where they can get some of that work done. And then we're supplementing that space with other space on campus where the faculty mentors and the program staff could work with those students to ensure that there's very little disruption to their research.
Thank you, Denzil. Before we leave, I just wanted to thank our 4 panelists today. Thank you so much for your wonderful answers and engagement. I'd like to give the Chancellor one more round of rousing applause. And finally, let me thank you for being here today, for all your engagement with Berkeley, for all that you do to support Berkeley and make Berkeley special. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the evening, and go Bears.